Hi folks, my name's Kent Hovind. I was a high school science teacher 15 years.
And this is how Matt Powell started. Nah, I'm just joking. We all know that Matt Powell is just a sad attempt at replacing your son. Kent needed someone who looks a bit like himself to replace his son. Someone to teach all the world's creationist talking points and who could make up even more to keep the scamming going. At the same time, Matt needed someone to make him more popular, give him a following, and stab in the back, replacing the other person once the chance arises. Just like Kent's son. It would be romantic if it wasn't funny to see two scammers hide behind the facade of Christian purity and mutual love while waiting for the best chance to do something even more fraudulent and stupid. Anyway, I'm not here to stress the obvious. So, let's hear what Kent wants to tell us. I'm sure it's going to be as illuminating as always.
How could you show the age of the earth? I think the very best evidence of what some people call a young earth is God said he did it in 6 days and nothing died until Adam sinned. And Jesus said that was the beginning of the creation.
Huh? I mean, what do I even need to research here? This is his best evidence or proof? And it can be debunked with, nuh-uh. Who cares what someone sort of claiming to speak for God wrote? Or what was written by someone who wrote for someone who sort of claimed to be related to the big guy. If you call something evidence, proof, do you know what you need, Kent, my love? Evidence!
So the best evidence of a young earth is the Bible. The Bible, certainly the dates in Genesis 5 and Genesis 11 clearly add up to about 6,000 years for the total age of the earth, 4,000 BC. That's never been refuted.
It has also never been refuted that Gregor Samsa became some type of insect-like creature, but do you know who believes in that story? Not even Kafka! Oh, silly me, I probably have to explain this to Kent. Kafka was a writer, and he wrote about a guy called Gregor Samsa who one day became an insect-like creature and... Okay, too complicated. Let's try with a book about bugs he might understand. Kent, do you know who thinks the very hungry caterpillar ate cheese, salami, and a lollipop? No one! Fucking no one! We don't need to refute it, because there is no reason to think it is true once the scenario has been proved impossible, or at least not true.
You can look at the science of living things, biology, and you'll see that
without evolution, and therefore a mastodontically longer time than what you are postulating, it is nothing. Is that what you were going to say? No, of course not.
the population of the earth today is growing, but if you do the math and go backwards in time, you can make everybody on the planet from 8 people getting off of Noah's Ark 4,500 years ago. If man's been here for millions of years, why aren't there a whole lot more people?
Oh my God. Is that your argument? Why there aren't more people if we have been alive for millions of years? And you even give us the smug, I know, right? Look. Well, Kent, let's see how many seconds it takes me to prove you wrong. I mean, I could already answer you, but I want to show you how stupid is what you are saying. 8 fucking seconds! Homo sapiens hadn't existed for millions of years! 200,000 years is actually even a pretty generous estimate. Even if you wanted to pretend to be talking about older form of apes, 750,000 is the most you can get. Not even 1 million, and definitely not millions. Let's say that your point still stands, even if such a ridiculous mistake shows how little you know about the topic. At the end of the day, you think that about 4,500 years ago, only 8 people were left. So who cares about how many there were before, right? He's saying that populations everywhere in the world at any point have been growing constantly, and therefore 4,500 years allow you to get from 8 people to 7 billion. I could answer his point on my knowledge alone, but let's see if we can find the answer doing a research he could have done before saying something this stupid. One minute, 48 seconds. I'll be honest, I didn't read everything I was showing, mostly because I know the answer, like everyone should if they think for a second. Populations do not grow in a constant manner, and definitely not in the same way as they do after the discovery of, I don't know, dentistry, hygienic procedures, surgery that does not kill you because barbers conduct it, or even fucking penicillin, and on and on and on and on and on and on and on. Kent, if you think that the hygienic, social, medical and living conditions of the 1200s allow for the same prosperity and quality of life as those of today, you are an absolute moron. Anyway, as I was saying, if Kent was to ever find this video, he would certainly claim that I am the moron, stupid, whack me, and blah 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 blah, because his source is academic. Yeah, would you like to know what is his academic source?
Incidentally, here's the population growth formula. P sub O, the original population, if we come from 8 humans, and then this is in from a pre-calculus math book at Kilgore College by Carl J. Smith, well-accepted human population growth formula. In fact, there's some problems in there to develop with students.
Yeah, I'm not joking. Or at least I cannot find any other sources for this claim. I wonder why creationists hardly ever give any sources. A pre-calculus formula used for students to practice, a subject studied by high schoolers in year 11 and 12 approximately. No idea what is the book, who accepts the formula, in which conditions, starting from when, none of that. Creationists see this formula that works for them, for the results they want to get to, and use it as if it was the one and only way to calculate population growth. So please, Kent, tell me how people who see you for who you are have to be whacked. Do explain your infinite wisdom. Who am I kidding? He can't deviate from the few sentences he keeps repeating from his taped seminars. This argument cannot be answered by those, so he'll just avoid it or make some stuff up. Or would you like to take a crack at it, Matt? I mean, you are way less believable than Kant was in the 90s, but at least your passive aggressiveness, your constant retention of anger, is quite funny.
When you look at the genetic load that's increasing in the gene pool of people, you say, wow, this can't have been going on for a long time, not millions of years.
I have no idea what he's talking about, and not in the way he'd like me to, though, the way that makes him feel smart. In the "your words make no sense" kind of way. Let's see if it is me being an ignorant or him just talking out of his ass. Damn journal websites preventing me from reading what seems to be a useful article. Oh wait, I forgot. Contrary to Kant, I do have an education. So with the power of my university login, I can read the article in its entirety. Minutes and 14 seconds to get to the part where I prove Kant wrong again. And this time I did need to read everything. Of course, you could say that Kant had no way to access the article as I did. Sure. However, this would prove that A, he is not willing to actually research what he talks about. Research costs money. B, he could just have read the abstract. It gives enough information to understand that you can't have too much genetic load. How much is too much, Kent? When does an organism, explode because of the amount of genetic load? I don't know what you're thinking. Why do we have the correct amount for 6,000 years and not for millions? Ignoring the fact that no one claims that humans have been around for millions of years. I had to cope multiple times with Kant's words and kept re-listening to his proof number 3. And yes, he actually said there is too much genetic load in people, at least for having been alive for millions of years. The only conclusion I can come to is that, in a move typical of churches and organized religions, Kant is showing his sexual repression by treating the genetic load as if it was, something that piles up over time and feels, a sack, a different type of load, and needs to be released every so often, especially in youth, because otherwise it feels as if you were exploding and you could feel blue. Am I right, Kent? Is that what you think? Because it is really the only explanation that matches the BS you've just been spouting. Genetic load is not a physical thing added to a container, or whatever you think it is, I don't know. Even your favorite sources, those that you use to pretend you know what you're talking about when you discuss science, Wikipedia and the Common Dictionary, would have given you a better explanation. The genetic load is a statistic that shows the amounts of deleterious mutations in a population, and it has to do with the fitness of individuals and species. It changes based on mutations and natural selection, and it can even be predicted without direct estimates. Because guess what? Evolution works! But let's pretend for a second that Kant knew all of this and simply misspoke. Maybe he meant that deleterious mutations have been going on for too long, and by now humans would be just a disgusting goo, incapable of thinking and speaking. Based on what, Kant? It's not like every generation loses a bone, and so in a few hundred generations we would not be solid, I don't know. Through genetic load, you can estimate how much mutations and natural selection can negatively affect a species. Or you can compare individuals and species fitness. Nothing in evolution says the process is quick or even instantaneous or proceeds on a regular basis. Evolutions of any kind are completely based on slow change. This is the point. And I am not referring to the 6 idiocies that you claim mean evolution.
You can look at the sun. The sun is burning up its fuel source. Obviously it's burning, and it's shrinking because of its burning up its fuel, and it is not only shrinking, it is throwing off 5 million tons a second. It's losing weight. Well, if your sun's been losing weight for billions of years, if you get back in time in your imagination, the sun would be much heavier, making gravity stronger, sucking all the planets in.
I would be shocked if Kent could make the correct measurements and prove he has got a point, and he's not just saying numbers, numbers, numbers. God! Although I cannot remember exactly the numbers, I can already say something off the top of my head. The sun is fucking humongous and far away! The force of gravity is a really weak force. I mean, our whole planet is not big enough to keep a flaming penis attached to itself. How long would it have taken Kent to have an answer to his sensational proof? 1 minute and 12 seconds. That's how long Kent would have needed. The sun has only lost 0.05% of its mass, meaning that the force of gravity affecting the Earth now, compared to when the sun was formed, even assuming Earth and the sun were formed at the exact same time, is essentially the same. And you know who could have understood this very basic concept if only his scientific knowledge didn't come entirely from a collection of soda caps? This guy.
The inverse square law.
Even I know! The intensity of an attraction is inversely proportional to its distance. Turns out, it's actually the square of its distance. So Kent, how can you mention this law in the same video in which you claim the sun would have swallowed the Earth through its gravity, despite knowing, or at least I hope you know, that it is so freaking far away? Is it possible that you are a scammer who twists and turns parts of reality whenever convenient? But don't worry, I don't think you are talking just to scam people. I am totally convinced you are also ignorant. Otherwise, you wouldn't use this law for your next proof.
You look at the moon. The moon's going around the Earth, but the moon's getting further away from the Earth. Okay? Well, that means it used to be closer. If you bring the moon back in closer, you get higher tides. And at some point, you get too close and they snap together like two magnets, called the inverse square law.
Are you kidding me? Can't. The whole premise of these videos that I am making is that I am so ignorant in science that if I know something or can find it in 5 minutes or less of research, no one has an excuse. Even I don't need to research this to know that the moon hasn't always been in the Earth's orbit. There are even several theories about how the moon originated. One of them, from what I know, the most popular at the moment, but correct me if I'm wrong, but definitely one of them is that it is made by the debris caused by the impact between the Earth and some huge celestial body. This debris was then captured by the Earth's gravity, and it is moving further and further away. At some point, it will leave Earth, because our gravity won't be able to hold onto the moon anymore. So, unless Kent thinks that something that left our atmosphere has to fall back onto the Earth, which would imply that he doesn't understand that there is no up and down in space, and I don't put this past him, the fifth proof, just like him, is full of Bologna.
Baloney. You're right. He's so vile we should use the crude Americanization of the word. He's full of baloney.
Can't believe we made it to the last proof.
And look at the Earth itself. The Earth is spinning, but it slows down.
Okay, the Earth is slowing down. And I assume your assumption is that if it had been going on for 4.5 billion years, it would have stopped by now. Okay? Says who? I mean, I'm sure it is possible to calculate why it hasn't, and there are perfectly valid explanations, but if you don't make your case, why would I bother destroying it? It's like the second proof, and the third, really. You don't understand numbers. You cannot quantify your too much and too little, therefore God.
I give about 30 different scientific indicators for a young Earth on my seminar part 1.
Oh God, your seminars can't. Given you are the definition of a narcissist, I am sure you consider them your Bible, wink wink, because you consider yourself God. But they have been debunked by everyone, which, yeah, I guess it does make them like the Bible. So, yeah, nice comparison, I guess.
I would encourage you to read that Bible, never been disproven, and think about it. Man, this is what it says. Maybe God is right. Maybe the Earth is 6,000 years old. That's plenty of time to accomplish everything I know of.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I am sure that everything you know of can be done in 6,000 years. Too bad you know nothing about science, including social sciences and humanities. Had we only had 6,000 years of history and societies, well, 4,500 years really, because of that flood thing, we'd be in a very different place. Which, let's face it, it's the place you'd love to bring us all back to, isn't it? Just one language, just one understanding of reality, just magical being. And if only women knew not to speak, you wouldn't have been married all those times, right? Like a true Christian man. I have to admit, I was about to do this video in 2 parts, given how difficult it is to cope with ignorant scammers trying to act smart. But yeah, I made it. I deserve a like, a subscription, and a comment from all of you. Please do all the things allowing me to grow as a channel and as a religious commentator. It would help me immensely. And remember that I accept every feedback, including negative ones, unlike churches.